Camera headlines from the news of the day. For 3 weeks, by air and sea, they searched for men reported adrift on tiny life rafts. Now out of Pacific skies comes the radio flash to an America which had almost given up hope. Looking back on 6 of his men rescued by a Navy flying boat. These are the first films of their arrival at a Navy base hospital, photographed by a Marine Corps cameraman. Game Eddie Rickenbacker shows the strain of his ordeal by sun and sea, the second time in 2 years that he's cheated death. The famous ace of World War I lived with his comrades through an epic of fortitude, winning out over exposure, hunger, thirst, and the relentless Pacific. Texas-born Captain William Cherry, 27 years old. The former airline pilot first rescued his weary but still smiles. Lieutenant Jim Whitaker, a Californian. They called him Iron Man. After 22 days adrift, he had strength to row. A comfy cot will look good to them all. Memento of their great adventure, the rubber boat that was their home for what must have seemed a lifetime. On its sides, they inscribed the crude log of their ordeal. Well, it's all over now, and Eddie will trade you the whole Pacific for 1 glass of plain water without salt. Thank you. Victory report to the President and the nation. Edward R. Stettinius, Jr., Lend-Lease administrator, makes public some amazing facts about America's tremendous program of aid to the United Nations.
This is a United Nations war. We can win it only by combining our resources with those of our allies. The value of Lend-Lease aid to date is $7.5 billion. Our shipments of planes and guns and industrial materials and food have grown from small beginnings to the great quantities which are now approaching $1 billion a month. In the Soviet Union, most of the fighting has been done with Soviet equipment, but our aid has been important. In the past year, we and the British together shipped to the Soviet Union over the Northern Road alone more than 3,000 planes and 4,000 tanks. And Lend-Lease works both ways. In the North African offensive, our forces have been aided by the British on a large scale. We shall have to send more of many things in order to carry on the forward march of the United Nations. In addition, we shall participate with our allies in relieving suffering and distress of the liberated peoples of the reoccupied areas. This program has begun in North Africa. It will continue elsewhere and will hasten victory.
Just such a transport as this was the first American troop ship sunk in the South Pacific in a year of war. The President Coolidge, steaming into harbor with 4,000 troops aboard, ran the mine, found it, and sank. Below, the drama of rescue in these official Navy films. Rescue boats tossing on an oil-streaked sea, filled with Americans to be proud of. When the mine hit, they were ordered back to their quarters to speed rescue work. Taken off by units, as Navy lifeboats arrived, they waited their turns without panic, singing even as they faced death. This is the happy ending. Of 4,000, only 4 were lost, thanks to their magnificent courage.
I should like to tell you the progress we've made in the past 12 months in our war-bound program. A year ago, we had only 700,000 workers investing only 4% of their earnings every payday. Today, more than 24 million workers are setting aside an average of 8.5% of their pay. So our soldiers and sailors and flyers can have the weapons they need. This is an achievement over here that will give encouragement to our allies and to our fighting men at their battle stations all over the world. Let's keep it up.
Yes, women are even working on the railroad, the first female section gang in the country. For Mike, the foreman, it's a dream come true. He not only gives the orders, but he has the last word. Swinging a 10-pound sledge on 6-inch spikes, they really do a man's job. Even Mike's wife is one of the gang. For 8 hours a day, they push. But what does Mike do? Oh, he's head man, king of all he surveys. Sisters, this is war.
General Douglas MacArthur keeps his eye on everything from the New Guinea battlefront to Yankee troop training in Australia. He puts the accent on hand-to-hand fighting, just what they need for jungle combat. The infantry still carries the burden of attack in the bush country, where the Nips fight a sort of semi-guerrilla warfare. Mortar and machine gun experts clear the way for the infantry attack. Forward is the command every MacArthur man must learn, as the Japs have found out in New Guinea. We're aboard an American carrier operating in the South Pacific. Alongside comes a destroyer to transfer welcome passengers. The crew of a torpedo bomber rescued after a forced landing at sea. Ensign Pilot Rodenberg is first into the breeches buoy for the trip across, saved because of a life raft that was made, perhaps, from the very rubber you're doing without. Well worth the sacrifice. The Navy has scores of such rescues to its credit. The transfer is made with both ships steaming at a steady clip. There's no stopping to do this job, for we're in dangerous seas. And so the names of 3 more fighting men are stricken from the grim list labeled missing in action. Time out from war for a bit of sport, and who said sailors can't swim? Anti-submarine nets keep out the sharks, and you'd think the boys didn't have a care in the world. Now for some fancy diving. Finding the anchor chain, well, you don't have to worry about the morale of our Yanks. In the midst of a war-torn ocean. Welcome interlude after long months at battle stations, symbolic of the day when the whole Pacific will become one great big Yankee swimming hole.
Lemons are doubly important now because fighting men and war workers need an extra lot of vitamin C. That builds up resistance to colds and illnesses. And the lemons are very rich in vitamin C, as you know. I read in the paper yesterday that most of our war workers are not getting enough vitamin C in their diet. Well, here's the cure for that. Santa Barbara County has been growing lemons for 75 years, and a great deal of the money from our lemon crop now is going right into war savings stamps and bonds. You help put the squeeze on Hitler and Hirohito when you buy war savings stamps and bonds.